Welcome to Whitespace, Data Center Dynamics weekly look at news from the sector. And we're reunited. Peter Judge, Max Smolats and Sebastian Moss. Now, these guys have got exciting things to tell you. Max has the ultimate in furniture, and Sebastian is going to be talking about space lasers. But before we get to that, I've got to tell you about the ultimate end of the enterprise data center. Big deal has gone down this week. We sort of knew it was going to happen because VMware leaked it, but VMware and AWS are doing a deal. It's like Pride and Prejudice, where they end up getting married. They've been sparring with each other for the whole book. But AWS has always been saying everybody's going to put all their data centers in our public cloud. That's all you need. They've done a little nod towards hybrid data centers here and there. Whereas VMware has said, look, we're virtualizing all the enterprise data centers in the world. Yeah, you might want to put some of that out on the public cloud, but only these public clouds that we have deals with. So neither of them had a good hybrid cloud story. And somebody somewhere among both companies noticed that if you put those two together, you could have what possibly, they say, they're telling us is the best hybrid cloud story you could possibly have. So, and what it is, VMware is launching a public cloud service with all the VMware tools for managing in-house data centers, software-defined data centers as they describe it. That's going to be out there, available on AWS natively, and you'll be able to move all the workloads from your data center back out onto the AWS cloud, and back in again if you want to consolidate onto a data center off the cloud, and around the world on different Amazon regions to your heart's content. So it's like all the VMware virtualized data centers, their doors are open so they can send all their workloads out to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. Well, next year when it gets delivered.
It's interesting because what does that mean for VMware's vCloud Air? Because they also have their own public cloud.
It's still going, right? But it was never very successful in the first place. So it's still there.
It's still there. Yep. I mean, and I suppose something's come down from Dell to say let's not have too high expectations of public cloud. Let's pull the plug on that a little. Mm-hmm. So they still have vCloud Air, but they had a public sector cloud for America, which they were doing with QTS, and they've sold that off. So there's less public cloud inside VMware than there was, and they also do still have deals with IBM and others. That was a deal that happened, that we expected to happen. We've had a deal which we've been expecting to happen that looks like it might not.
Yeah, we talked about this before. NetSuite, Oracle wants to pick up NetSuite. Larry Ellison, who created Oracle, owns a lot of NetSuite. His family members, venture capitalist funds, he owns a lot of NetSuite. So when they try to buy NetSuite, some people are like, "What are you kind of buying yourself there?" So the largest unaffiliated shareholder, T. Rowe Price, has said this doesn't add up. The price doesn't sound right. The deal doesn't sound right. We think this is a good company. We think it has room to grow. It seems like a lot of informal chats going on. We're going to vote against this. Oracle said, okay, we're going to give you more time to vote on this, but we're not actually going to raise the price. So I don't really see how they think. If people weren't happy with it, give them more time to become happy. I don't know.
Yes. This week we've also had the launch of Windows Server 2016. Literally yesterday went on general availability, went on sale, and obviously it's quite a big player for Microsoft. They've been working on this for a long time. We've heard a lot about unique features of Windows Server 2016. Microsoft still has a negligible market share in server operating systems, but this is the one which we were just trying to take a fight to Linux. Scottish data center operator Brightsolid became the first in the world to launch a Windows Server 2016 based cloud service. And what's interesting about that, it's the first one to offer shielded VMs.
Okay.
Now, shielded VMs are very, very interesting for a whole bunch of reasons, but they were developed specifically for multi-tenant data centers. And the idea is even your hosting provider can't see what's actually going inside this VM. They're locked down so tight that even if you steal the whole server, you're not going to be able to see what's in there. It is basically, they're promoting it as the most secure cloud in the world, which is like, I don't know about that.
Okay, I mean, Windows Server 2016, we've got a feature on it from our US correspondent, David Chernikov, which goes into some detail on the shielded angle to it. And it's also saying that that one reason we should maybe pay a little more attention to Windows Server here is because they've learned some lessons from Azure. Because Windows Server, you're saying it's got a negligible share. That's in data centers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And whereas in terms of cloud platform for infrastructure as a service, Azure is doing surprisingly well. So they've taken that learning, put it into Windows Server 2016. Should we be? I mean, why is this the first one in Scotland, and why is a comparatively small service provider taking the jump here?
I think it's just that they were the first in terms of they did it literally on the day. I think that more people are going to start doing this. The shielded VMs sound really, really nice. So it's just it's like the first post.
Okay,
me first.
Right, good. And you get to see in our story the marvellous pink tartan tie of the Brightsolid CEO. Right, meanwhile in the UK we've got a large data centre campus that we've heard of before has moved one step closer to reality. They've got staff in place, CEO and CTO. They've got a large bunch of offices and a good sort of marketing story, because this is Kao Park, named after Sir Charles Kao, who discovered or invented the international fibre optic cable technology there while working for Standard Telephone Laboratories on that site in the 1960s. Standard STL, as they were known, became part of Nortel. Nortel disappeared, but there is this laboratory and the surrounding site, which has been turned into a technology cluster located on the way between London and Cambridge, with all the sort of transport and communications strength that you'd expect from that. And the news this week is they've got planning approval. They're going to be allowed to do it, which is good, so that people haven't objected to the data centre arriving there.
When you say big, how big is it? Do we know? Do they give any estimates? How much do they want to build there?
Yes, 150,000 square feet of white space, and quite a lot of office space around it. Their idea is that data centres on their own are okay, but if you've got office space around, you can make them into an actual cluster, which probably goes some way towards an argument that this development is creating jobs, which has been a subject in the news this week.
Unlike some other data centers, absolutely. So there was research published this week from American policy think tank called Good Jobs First.
Yes.
And the clue's in the name. They've looked at 11 major data center projects in the US, so sort of like the projects built by Facebook and Google and AWS. And what we know about those projects is they love receiving tax breaks and various benefits from the state. Mm-hmm. And this research argues that basically this huge level of and incentives from the government does not actually translate into jobs or economic growth. So why the hell are we doing this? And basically they estimate that they looked at 11 projects and figured out that on average states and local governments were paying $2 million per job.
Okay.
And there's no way in hell that poor IT guy can give back $2 million in taxes, right? So essentially,
I'd like to think they're all worth that. But
the taxpayer is throwing money at these projects, and some large hyperscale vendors are using some pretty unfair tactics. So Sebastian, you wrote a lot about Facebook recently, like before they sort of like settled on Los Lunas, that they were sort of like bashing Utah and New Mexico.
Just playing them off against each other, and then of those few jobs they get, most of those are out of town. So they're saying to this little village or little town, we'll give you jobs, we'll give you investment, we'll make you techy, we'll make you sexy. But in reality, it's some security jobs, that's it, and then everyone else is out of town, and it's still a very small amount of people.
Yes. So, and basically, Good Jobs First argues that the cap on incentives should be at 50,000 per job, which would, of course, just like make it so minuscule that nobody would bother with it, considering, data centers provide, like maybe a couple of dozen workplaces, even if it's a very big facility.
So, Sebastian, you've been waiting very patiently. What do you want to talk to us about?
Satellites, or lasers, laser internet, space lasers. I don't have words, I don't have sentence structures. It's called HALO, right? High articulation laser optics. So LaserLight are a company, they want to put a bunch of satellites up there, via that for government, for Google and stuff like that. As a background, obviously fiber optics are much more useful and important, will still be like 99% of the internet, but they've already done a deal with Equinix. It's moving forward. This seems like a proper actual thing. Space lasers, we teased it in our last issue of the magazine, teasing something else for more on space lasers soon. It's exciting times.
Okay.
Space lasers.
I mean, this company, Halo. No, Halo is
LaserLight.
LaserLight.
Halo's the
okay.
brain.
So LaserLight kind of existed and was getting set up to build this, and the news here is that they've taken a data center partner.
Yeah, so they've been talking about this for a while, that they want to do something like this, but there's a lot of satellite and rocket kind of companies that just build on the fact that space is really cool, so you don't know how much is hype, whereas now they've actually started to get a business model together. They've chosen Equinix as the primary interconnection partner. They're going to do a test in Equinix's data center in Washington, so stay tuned.
The obvious drawback to this is that space is a long way away. I mean, these are medium Earth orbit, low Earth orbit?
I think they're going for medium, medium Earth orbit.
Yeah, okay, because the question is whether or how much they can be geostationary, I think, isn't it? But it's a long way up, and then to the other satellite, and then back down again. So a round trip via space laser would probably be slower than sending it under the sea.
Not necessarily, because because Elon Musk wants to do a similar thing, and the thing they're pushing is in space, in a vacuum, light travels faster. And it also can go on a completely straight line, whereas if you read our fiber optics, submarine fiber optic article, they have to go through corridors, they have to go around walls, sea walls, and broken ships and stuff.
There'll be repeaters and things like that in the way.
Yeah.
So latency isn't the problem you might think it would be. How about bandwidth?
Bandwidth, 100 gigabytes per second, so it's not huge.
Yeah.
It is impressive for a space laser, but it's not huge for, we've got some huge advances in submarine cables, so this is definitely a backup thing. It's a side thing.
All right.
But, if you work in the industry, redundancy is always good. The more versions of ways of getting connection, the better.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Presumably, if Equinix is the partner, they get to have sort of dedicated lines in this. So this could be a part of the connections between their international business exchanges, as they call them. So Equinix customers could potentially get a bit of dedicated space laser.
Dedicated space laser, and again, from Equinix perspective, even if it doesn't end up being that useful, it is very cool. So it's a nice thing for them to tick on their box.
All right, yeah. Good marketing.
Yeah, it works all round. Everyone's
yes. Good.
Space.
And speaking of marketing, Max, you got quite excited this week.
I couldn't stop looking at this Iron Throne Eaton belt. So Eaton.
And to be honest, nor could the readers.
Yeah, it's doing good traffic, but the idea is, so Eaton has decided, they're like, this Game of Thrones thing is really, really popular, and then they have a marketing manager who's a big fan. So
they noticed that their PDUs are long and thin like spears. Yeah.
So they commissioned a local artist near the headquarters to build an Iron Throne from Game of Thrones out of power distribution units. And I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but like when you take a look at it, it's actually surprising how well it works. And it's totally the Iron Throne, there's no doubt about it. 36 EPDUs they used, I think it's third generation Eaton kit. They were not new, they were all used, so the idea is it's not just like a waste of good PDUs, you know. And yeah,
no PDUs were killed in making this throne.
Absolutely, 100%.
They're all dead already.
And if you want to see it and you're in the US, you're in luck because it's going to be touring some shows. I think it starts with Dell EMC in Austin, and then it goes to Spice World, which is also in Austin. And there might be some others, but they haven't announced them yet. I personally really hope they make it to London, but I mean, it's a tall order.
Come to DCD, Zeta Structure.
Yes, but if anyone from Eaton is watching, but yeah, check it out on the site. It looks fantastic, and would like to see more of this sort of like data centers and pop culture clashing together.
But what else should people check out?
Oh well, yes, our event. Whether or not Eaton brings its throne there, we will be at Zeta Structure in London, and we have an October issue with a lot more information about what this Zeta Structure is that we're going to be talking about, and information about the venue of where we're going to be, the old Billingsgate Fish Market, which is more high-tech than it sounds, and in a cracking good location. There's going to be lots going on there, lots of debates and TED-style talks and information. So, we'll see you there, and before that, we'll see you in the next White Space.
Bye-bye.